All right, folks, welcome. Cheap Seats number 84. This one's audio only, and it's just me. It's been a while since I've done a solo episode. Unfortunately, with some time constraints and just varying schedules, I'm having to do it by myself, so no Mason or Bryce. So this one's going to be a bit of a different style, honestly. I'm going to try to do it a little more like news style, and also it's going to be a lot more of like football-based information. I would say typically we're a mix between comedy and football, and we tend to lay more on the side of comedy. But this one, I'm going to be honest with you, I can't be funny alone. So I'm just going to go ahead and do basically informational stuff. There's a lot to talk about, so I didn't want to just skip out this week. But without further ado, I suppose we can dive in. So Packers Lions was the main game I got to saw this week. I honestly didn't get to watch a lot of football this week, and it mainly was because it was my birthday this week, so I had a lot going on. But I did catch Packers Lions. That was very important for me to watch. So overall, Packers lose 24-14 to the Lions. It was an absolute sloppy game for the Packers, and honestly, they beat themselves. 10 penalties committed. There was an ugly turnover by Jordan Love, which was unexcusable. At the end of the first half, where you get the pick to Kirby Joseph, it was just kind of ugly, a little flip. I think he was looking for Josh Jacobs, and he just didn't get it. So, yeah, I mean, that was unexcusable. Packers led in yards the whole game. Actually, I'll take a look at the stats right now. Packers had 273 yards receiving, 138 yards rushing, and they led with more yards than the Lions, and they still lost. So, but that, the main thing was just turning the ball over a lot. Lots of fumbles, a lot of unexcusable things. I mean, it was wet and rainy, so the snap was dropped quite a bit. Yeah, Dontavion Wicks dropped one in the end zone, which was pretty crucial. And honestly, the Lions proved to be the better team overall. So I know I kind of had some doubts about Jared Goff, considering he's typically not good outside. The Lions have played every game inside this year. But no, he showed up. He had a game. Yeah, I think he had completed over 80% of his passes. I know he started out like 12 for 12, and the run game was always good. The Packers struggled stopping the run. Montgomery kind of had his way. Gibbs had a big touchdown too. And yeah, overall, it was just not a pretty game for the Packers. And I don't think that's what you want to see out of the Packers this year going forward. Like, you can't have games like that. You can't expect to make a deep playoff run or even win the division if you're going to play sloppy games like that. Here's a clip of Matt LaFleur with his thoughts after the loss.
First of all, give Detroit a ton of credit. They played a clean game, much cleaner than we did. I was disappointed with the number of penalties and just self-inflicted wounds that we had, and you can't do that against a really good football team. I think when you look at the sequence in terms of them kicking 3 points right before the 2-minute drive, then we have a pick six, and then they come out the second half and score a touchdown. I mean, that's a lot to overcome right there, and obviously we didn't do a good enough job to be able to overcome that.
Okay, so you see clearly Matt LaFleur not pleased. I don't think anyone was, and he is right. They were just messy. Detroit was the better team, so Packers have a bye week coming up, so hopefully they can kind of figure some of that stuff out. I feel like Love wasn't 100% healthy either, so hopefully they can get back on schedule. Brian Branch, though, did get ejected in the middle of the game with a hard hit on, I think it was Bo Melton on the sideline. Ranged over, blew him up, and they ejected him from the game. Now, I definitely think it was targeting. I don't know if I agree with the ejection, but I think after the Chris Olave stuff happened, it was kind of bound to happen. So moving on to another random NFL news. That was just kind of the focus game, but Jason Kelce destroyed a kid's phone at Penn State on Friday, or actually that was Saturday. And Jason Kelce is 100% right for doing that. The kid deserved it. He called Travis Kelce a F-slur. So, I think that's just the epitome of mess around, fuck around, find out, whatever you want to say. But you can't shit talk someone's brother who is an all-pro NFL center and expect nothing to happen to you. So he hit him back with the, who's the, now? So he kind of showed him what was up. Jason Kelce wasn't fucking around. And the kid deserved to get his phone destroyed. I can't believe anyone is saying that there's a big lawsuit coming. Like, sure, you can give Jason Kelsey a lawsuit, but he was in the right, in my opinion. Like, sure, you shouldn't destroy someone else's property, but I think he was 100% in the right. So, other Pennsylvania news, Saquon Barkley had a backwards hurdle that he somehow completed over the Jaguars in their 28-23 win. That might have been the most insane shit I've ever seen. I honestly think is better than the Garrett Wilson catch on Thursday night against the Jets, because this backwards hurdle, this is shit you've never seen before. I've never seen anyone do a backwards hurdle. I've seen amazing catches. I've seen OBJ make a once in a lifetime catch. I've seen Garrett Wilson now make that similar catch, and you see like amazing catches every now and again. I can't recall one time seeing someone hurdle a guy backwards. So I think Saquon, that might be the play of the year, honestly. It was the most amazing. It looks cartoonish when he does it. He hops up, hurdles the guy backwards. It's insane to watch. So I think that's the play of the year, and Saquon has been a beast for the Eagles this year. So trade deadline hit. In other news, Commanders ended up trading for Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints. Saints obviously not doing well. They fired Dennis Allen. Probably a long time coming on that one. I mean, they started out hot, but I feel like a lot of people saw them in this position where they weren't going to be able to sustain where they were at. Like, I don't know, I just don't believe in Derek Carr. I don't believe in Dennis Allen. I just don't believe in the system. And people kind of figured him out. I think, like Clint Kubiak, decent offensive coordinator, but people figured him out. Everyone was raving over him at the start of the year, but he got figured out, and the Saints are kind of falling apart. So they're trading away pieces. Olave is obviously probably gone for a bit. I don't know what the severity is in his concussion, but he's done for a bit. But Lattimore goes to the Commanders. Commanders are red hot. The Commanders were a team people were asking to be traded to. People like Dan Quinn's culture. Jaden Daniels, obviously a stud, probably the favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. But yeah, Lattimore's going to be a big piece for the Commander secondary, in my opinion. This is what Dan Quinn had to say about Lattimore.
Dan, obviously, you've talked that Adam is going to sort of run the room when it comes to acquiring a player like Marshawn and you could roll with the team you have. At what point for you were you kind of like, all right, we've got this record, the situation is what it is, looking around maybe cornerback is an area where we could get some extra help?
I'd say you had me at hello. You know, this was easy, man. To get and acquire a player of Sean's caliber, the toughness, the physicality, whether it was this month, 6 months, you know, from now, like this is a player that you'd want to be on your team. He stands for the right stuff. He's got an attitude to battle, and we're really pumped to have him here.
I was going to ask you too, what do you think of him just a player and over the years, and how does he fit? How do you see envisioning with him and then Benjamin and Mike, you know, how their roles might change?
He's certainly been exposed to a good system, and I'd say I've had the opportunity to coach against him as well. And not everybody can go and match onto different players in different spots, left side, right side, in the slot, and doing that. And so you got to be a smart guy to be able to do that. And he's shown over the course of his career the ability to move inside and outside and staying connected to receivers, John. That's really the name of the game. And he's able to play it tight. He's a good tackler. So, yeah, we're pumped we got him, man.
So, yeah, Lattimore is going to be a big piece for the Commanders. Lots of versatility. Hopefully he can stay healthy. I know he's a guy who's had some injury problems in the past. Personally, a pretty big fan of Marshawn Lattimore. I don't know why, but I always like Madden 17 or Madden 18. I had a Packers franchise, and I signed him in free agency, and he was just a beast. So it's one of those guys where like he does well in the video game, so you like him. But he's hung around a while. He's a veteran, so I mean, hopefully that can be a piece for them to win the East. I think the Eagles are going to be a pretty big competition, but the Commanders they look like a whole new team from last year. The new ownership is great. I think Josh Harris is their owner, if I'm not mistaken, but him and Dan Quinn have flipped that team around and done a complete 180, which is pretty respectable. So I think Commander fans have something to be happy about, and hopefully it can stay that way. Other news, Caleb Williams got injured in the game against the Cardinals where they lost. The Bears are not looking great. Apparently he has the same similar stats through 8 starts that Justin Fields has. So I don't know if you want to blame that on Caleb Williams, or is that an issue to blame on Matt Eberflus? I'm looking for the stats right now, but the stats are through 8 games, Justin Fields in 2023 had 171 points scored, 321 yards per game. And Caleb Williams, 172 points scored, 295 yards per game, so a little bit less. And I'm not necessarily a big fan of yards per game as a stat, because I feel like, if you're getting short field position and as long as you're scoring, the yards shouldn't necessarily matter too much. But I feel like Eberflus is not a good coach for the Bears. I feel like he should probably be fired. They run a very defensive scheme, and it's just not really sustainable. I feel like he's going to get the axe at the end of the year, and they're probably going to go with an offensive scheme coach. So we'll see what happens there. All right, so we are halfway through the year, so I think it's time to take a look at some of the midseason awards, or predicting who's going to win what award at the end of the year. I feel like a lot of people usually do this, so I mean, my picks, I would say, are pretty typical, but they're all justifiable, I would say. So I have MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Comeback Player of the Year, and also Coach of the Year. So just going down the list, I got Lamar Jackson for MVP. Offensive Player of the Year, I got Derrick Henry. Defensive Player of the Year, I got Xavier McKinney. Coach of the Year, I got Dan Campbell and possibly Dan Quinn, depending how the Commanders finish. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I got Jaden Daniels. Defensive Rookie of the Year, I got Jarrett Verse. And Comeback Player of the Year is a toss-up to me. So let's dive into each one. I think Lamar is going to win MVP because he has the best stats so far. He's been the anchor of that Ravens offense. He has 20 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Josh Allen's right there with him with 17 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So honestly, it's a toss-up between those two guys, but I feel like Lamar's just very good in the regular season, then he gets to the postseason and he kind of chokes. But that's besides the point. I feel like he's going to win MVP again and get a number 3. So Lamar might be a guy that stockpiles the MVPs but never really finishes. But, that's all right. Offensive Player of the Year, Derrick Henry has over 1,000 yards through 9 weeks, which is nuts to me. And I feel like a lot of people didn't think he was going to be in this position. But no, he just keeps trucking. I mean, the Ravens are a good scheme fit for him. And I feel like he's might end up being a 2,000-yard rusher this year. We'll have to see towards the end, but he'll at least get close, I think. Defensive Player of the Year, I get Xavier McKinney. Now, this one you really could go with like Dexter Lawrence or TJ Watt or Xavier McKinney. But McKinney's been on a crazy start for the Packers, and the change and like the impact he's brought to the Packers has been nuts, where he had 5 interceptions in like the first 5 games, or was it 6 interceptions in the first 5 games? And then on top of that, defenses are no longer throwing deep on the Packers because he's just such a force. I feel like that's a pretty big impact, and I feel like he has a great shot at winning Defensive Player of the Year. Coach of the Year, I'm going with Dan Campbell. I mean, obviously we know what the Lions are doing right now. 7-1, and they don't seem to be slowing down at all. Dan Quinn's a good secondary one. The Commanders are they're like 7-2, I want to say. So, I mean, obviously they're a good choice, but I'm going to personally go with Dan Campbell. I feel like the Lions are probably going to finish with like 2 to 3 losses at the most. And they're probably a Super Bowl favorite right there with the Chiefs. So I would expect them to be in there in the mix. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels. I mean, this one's pretty obvious. He's been a beast, and he's in the MVP conversation too. So I don't really have to do much explaining on that one. And Defensive Rookie of the Year, Jarrett Verse for the Rams. This one, I'm going to be honest. I mean, this is just kind of the popular pick right now. I don't really have a standout guy for Defensive Rookie of the Year, but Verse has 3 sacks. He has a bunch of tackles for loss, and he's been a good player for the Rams so far. So I feel like that's an alright pick. Comeback Player of the Year, toss-up. You can go with Kirk. You can go with Burrow. You can go with a bunch of different guys. I think I'm going to go with Kirk just because he's really kind of coming to his own with the Falcons, and it took him a bit. A lot of people are not patient with Kirk, They were expecting him to produce right away, and he did struggle at the start, but now he's kind of turned it around. So, all right. So I think we're ready to dive into my picks for this week. Last week I fared okay. I went 9-6, and a lot of my counterparts ended up going that way too. So Dalton went 9-6, Mason 9-6, and Bryce finished pretty well. He finished 11-4, I want to say. So overall, I am 94-69. Bryce is 105-58, probably in the lead, I would assume. 55-34 for Mason, and 63-49 for Dalton. So, picks for the week. Just get it all pulled up here. Bengals Ravens playing Thursday night. This is the night I'm actually recording this podcast, so this game will be over by the time I upload it. But I am going with the Ravens. I have them locked in. I feel like it's a pretty obvious choice. They've been pretty good lately, and they're at home, so I'm going with the Ravens. Giants, Panthers in Germany. I'm actually going with the Panthers as an upset pick. Got the win last week against the Saints. Bryce Young kind of coming to his own. I'll go with the Panthers. Patriots, Bears. Bears sit at 4-4. Patriots at 2-7. I don't hate a Patriots upset pick here, but I'm going to go with the Bears. I've just got burnt one too many times on picking the Patriots, so I'm kind of over them. Bills and Indy. Bills pretty easily 7-2. Colts 4-5, struggling, don't have a quarterback. Yeah, I mean that one speaks its own story. Same thing with Vikings, Jaguars. I'm going Vikings. Vikings have regressed a little bit. Sam Darnold's kind of come back down to earth, but I'm still going to go with the Vikings. Sunday at noon, the Chiefs play the Broncos. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. That should be a blowout. We'll have to see. Chiefs 8-0, best team in the league right now. Anyone surprised? No. Falcons and Saints. I'm going to go with the Falcons. Saints just banged up, not playing well. And the Falcons have been hot. So I feel like it's a pretty obvious pick. Niners, Buccaneers. Buccaneers just took the Chiefs into overtime. Niners really banged up. I'm actually going to switch my pick to the Buccaneers. I had 49ers on Sleeper. Thinking about it now, I'm going to go with the Buccaneers in the upset. I like them. They just took the Chiefs to overtime. It's at home. The Niners are banged up. The Niners are fresh off a bye, but I like the Bucs. Steelers versus Commanders. This is a pretty good matchup, actually. 6-2 versus 7-2. I'm going to go Commanders. I'm going to ride the hot hand. But Steelers did trade for Mike Williams, so we'll see if that affects it at all. Tennessee versus the Chargers. I'm going to go with the Chargers. Tennessee has just not been a good football team. Chargers are 5-3, and they've been sneaky good in the West. So then you got Jets, Cardinals. This one's kind of a toss-up. I think you could probably go either way. I'm personally going to go with the Cardinals. Kind of like them this week. Took it to the Bears last week, and maybe Kyler can keep it rolling. Eagles versus Cowboys rivalry game here, and that's on CBS at 3:30. Going with the Eagles, 6-2. Cowboys are a mess, so not really much of a question there. Sunday Night Football, Lions versus Houston. This is going to be a pretty good game. I'm going to go with the Lions, 7-1. Hot hand. Not really much you can do about that one. So, Miami versus the Rams on Monday Night Football. I'm going Miami. I'm going Tua. Tyreek's going to come back, and hopefully he plays well. So, although that was a crazy end to the Rams and Seahawks game last week. So, those are my picks for the week. All the rest of the guys will make their picks on Sleeper, and we'll talk about them next week. So, thank you for listening to the whole thing. If you have, I know a lot of people don't make it this far. I mean, honestly, it's probably kind of a bad episode. I'm just not really used to recording by myself since we don't normally do it that way. But hey, do what I can do. Try to get it out there. Give me your picks for the week here in the comments and let me know. So, all right. Well, we'll see you, Cheap Seats 85, next week. And thank you for listening.